Everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, taking a fun and exciting video for you guys today, because we're going to be talking about the fact that Teknoparrot just added Xbox emulation via CXBX to the Teknoparrot launcher. And two games are going to be leading the charge out of the gate: The House of the Dead 3, the arcade version, as well as Virtual Cop 3. I totally understand the House of the Dead 3 has been ported to the original Xbox as well as the Wii, but you have to remember that Chihiro had more RAM than the original Xbox did, so this is going to be a better version of the game. And as far as Virtual Cop 3 is concerned, that never left arcades, so honestly the only way to play it is either via a modded Xbox with extra RAM or something like CXBX. But I want you to temper your expectations. This is still incomplete emulation. It will run relatively well, but sometimes it'll just crash or completely tank its frame rate because the emulation is not finished. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But it's great to see something like Teknoparrot bringing in more of these dispersed emulators like we've seen on the PlayStation 2 front and even PS3, because these arcade emulators, as far as actually having the arcade forks involved, can be definitely difficult to set up and even understand in the first place. So Teknoparrot is something going to ease you into the overall setup process, but don't think it's going to be 2 clicks and you're into the game. You're still going to have to set up the actual game files as well as the overall Chihiro BIOS files and the JVS IO, that way you can actually control things. So this is definitely not going to be arcade emulation 101. We're more of like a 201 level, but any sort of ease of use is definitely going to be improving things. And it is the reality. Chihiro didn't have a ton of games on it, but the games that did exist on it were better than the Xbox versions. And in Virtual Cop 3's instance, which we're going to cover in the back half of this video, that never actually left Chihiro and got a home port, and that's always been weird to me. But as far as the House of the Dead 3 here is concerned, it'll definitely run at full speed, but it will randomly slow down. And just so you know, as a baseline, I'm running this on an i9-12900K on a 3080 Ti, as well as 64 gigabytes of RAM. So I have all of the power here to be able to handle something like this, but again, it is just incomplete emulation, and hopefully it does get improved in the future, because that really is the thing. PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 emulation are beyond Xbox and Xbox 360 emulation. That's not a dig on the overall emulators for the Xbox. I'm sure it is not an easy task whatsoever, but it just feels like the Xbox generation is definitely a step behind emulators when it comes to stuff like the PlayStation or even Nintendo on the Triforce branch of Dolphin now, or stuff like Wii emulation. But I'm sure one day it'll definitely improve, and hopefully getting added into Teknoparrot makes some developers want to go out there and actually improve the overall emulation for everyone to enjoy. And honestly, being able to play the arcade version of The House of the Dead 3 is a fun party trick, and it does have some actual improvements. But you'll see there, for some reason, when that camera pans, the frame rate just absolutely tanks. You can definitely go over to the Wii re-release of this, although it has softer graphics in my opinion, and of course this did release on the original Xbox as well, but that is going to have some graphical cuts just based upon the fact that it has less RAM. Because really the Chihiro, all that was an Xbox motherboard in an arcade cabinet with a double complement of RAM, but really not much else changed around. These things came from the generation where putting consoles in arcades was getting very popular. You saw it with Nintendo in the Triforce board, which is recently talked about on Dolphin emulation. You see it with the Chihiro as well, and even PlayStation 2 boards made their way into arcade cabinets with basically no changes whatsoever. So this is not out of the ordinary, but because Xbox emulation still lags behind a bit, it isn't running as well as the PlayStation stuff out there or the Nintendo stuff. But even if it's not, it is still fun, and I'm always here to talk about improvements in emulation, even if it is just getting more people involved in it. Because I absolutely love the House of the Dead franchise. It's one of the best things Sega ever did, and I've always held off on buying an arcade board for it because I have the Wii version, I have the Xbox version, and those things are close enough to the arcade original that I figured I would really wait for Chihiro emulation to catch up a little bit. And honestly, it has been a long wait, but it has improved since the last time I talked about it, and now in Teknoparrot it is going to be easier experience. We're going to go into the first of 2 soundtrack samples in the video. The audio is not perfect and it can hitch because, again, for some reason this likes to just drop frames every once in a while, but it's something that really is going to bother your ears whatsoever. It's just going to sound slightly off. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds or so, and I'll come back. We'll talk about Virtual Cop 3, the Chihiro exclusive game I love.
What?
So yeah, you can definitely tell there that every once in a while the audio is going to hitch when it actually starts dropping frames, and as to why that occurs, I really do not know. It's not like there's a lot of different settings you can change on the emulation, and clearly I have enough specs to be able to do it. It just means the emulation is not complete. Let's move over to Virtual Cop 3, one of the best exclusives on the Chihiro, and it really is surprising this thing never got a home port, because you had an Xbox port of House of the Dead 3. I really thought Sega would bring this to Xbox, or at least the Wii, where you had the motion controller giving you basically perfect light gun sort of action. And this is one where the emulation does work until for some reason it decides not to work, either with a low frame rate or with a JVS IO error. And if that doesn't sound familiar, JVS is just basically another standard after Xemu to be able to hook arcade boards up into cabinets, and they would always come with IO boards, basically just these secondary boards that would plug into the motherboard where you'd wire up all of your controls, and they would be ingested into the actual hardware. And that can sometimes be a little bit tricky, but this is a situation where it starts out working and then has an issue. And as to why the actual emulation slows down as the game gets further in, I really do not know. I'm thinking maybe it might be a JVS error. And if you do want to play around with this one and you launch into the game and everything is running at a slow frame rate, go ahead and Alt-Tab out and back into the game, and then you will end up with a much better frame rate. Seems like there's a couple things to clean up in the background, but again, this is definitely the start of something, and you don't expect perfection in emulation, Teknoparrot or otherwise, the first kind of week that it goes out live. But this definitely brings these games more into the public consciousness, and hopefully that means again we'll see some improved emulation on this one, because you're going to see here in Virtual Cop 3, everything is working perfectly fine, then all of a sudden the game's going to stutter a little bit, and you're going to see a JVS error come up, and that is going to basically freeze the game, unfortunately. Now this is a previous capture I did on a different version of CXBX, and I had better performance on it. It was running slightly smooth, but even then, I cannot ever get this thing to run at a locked 60 frames per second. And I really do hope that one day we see the same amount of improvements on the Xbox emulation side of things as we do on PCSX2 and RPCS3 for PlayStation 3. Because I'm not sure if the community for Xbox just isn't as large in the development of emulation side of things, or for some reason the hardware is slightly more complex, because obviously original Xbox is an x86 processor with an NVIDIA provided GPU, and of course has its own operating system, but compared to something like the PlayStation 2, on paper at least, you would think it would be slightly easier to get the emulation running. So if you do know why that is, leave me a comment down below, because I would be curious. Because I have a modded Xbox and a modded Xbox 360, so honestly, not really systems I go all that much towards emulating as far as my gaming is concerned. I'll usually just go to the real hardware. But on the Chihiro side of things, obviously, outside of modding an original Xbox, which basically no one is going to do, this is the way that you actually play the game. If you've never played Virtual Cop 3 before, trust me, it's absolutely a vibe. It is a ton of fun, but it does the one cardinal sin I hate in arcade games. It has a bad ending if you fail to shoot down everything at the last second. That drives me nuts. You spent so much money to play the game, just give you an ending, not a bad one that says restart so you can see the last level. Soundtrack sample, and I'll be right back.
Please don't shoot! Help me!
So I definitely hope in the future Xbox emulation on the Chihiro side of things improves, because there are a lot of fun games to play on the hardware, and it's just one of those things that I think most people forget these even existed or ran on Chihiro hardware. Because you probably saw the House of the Dead 3 in arcade, you probably played it and had no idea that it was just running on a bone stock Xbox with a little bit of extra memory. And I guess with extra memory it wouldn't be bone stock, but it really wasn't all that improved compared to some of the other arcade boards out there based on home console hardware, where they would increase the clock speeds and add a lot of functionality to it. So don't expect perfection when it comes to the House of the Dead 3 or Virtual Cop 3 on Teknoparrot, but do be aware it has been added, and seeing any sort of movement on Chihiro emulation definitely makes me happy, because not every single emulation video means you're going to get perfect emulation, but any sort of improvements definitely worth talking about when it comes to Sega, and one arcade exclusive Virtual Cop 3, definitely the type of thing I'm going to talk about and I think you guys want to know about. But short of that, we're done. If you want to play around with this, update Teknoparrot. It's absolutely free to play these games and have fun. But short of that, we're done. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.